Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a good week this past week. I have. And welcome back to Imaginary Creatures. So you remember last week, it was the very prequel of Jason and the Golden Fleece. And we talked a little bit about what a quest is. So this week, we're going to find Jason and he's going to go on a quest. And the first part of a quest is when you get a call. And the call is the moment the hero gets invited to go on a quest. And a quest is a deliberate decision to go out and do something that kind of challenges you. Sort of like when you play a video game or when you play a board game or when you play any good game. It could be golf even, or it could be tennis, could be chess. Something that is a challenge for you and there's clear rules to it, and you know that you need to meet a challenge and try to overcome it. And so we're going to see today, and you may be familiar with it, that Jason gets called out on a quest by a king. So let's go ahead and get started with today, and we'll see what this quest is all about. Let me share the screen with you. And let's find out a little more about this. Okay, here we go. Long after Phrixus had died, you remember Phrixus was one of the two children that we heard about last week, and he was the one that rode on the golden fleece, the golden ram, and he didn't fall off into the water. He made it all the way. And he's the one that after the ram died, he took the fleece and he hung it over the tree. Remember? Okay. So after Phrixus had died, there lived in the certain country a king and queen who had but one child, a boy named Jason. The king, whose name was Æson, was a good-natured man, but rather a weak king. He could not defend his kingdom, and after a while, his own brother, Jason's uncle, came to Æson's kingdom with a large army, and he drove King Æson out of the kingdom, and his family too, out of the land, and he seized the throne for himself. Thereafter, Æson was forced to live far away in poverty and without friends. That wasn't very fair, was it? Æson always wanted the best for his son, however, and so he sent his boy Jason away to be educated by Chiron, who was thought to be the wisest person in the world. Now, Chiron might be called only half a person, for Chiron was a centaur. And while centaurs had heads and arms like those of men, their bodies and legs were like those of horses. Although centaurs were, for the most part, savage and monstrous creatures, Chiron was much different sort altogether. He was a scholar and he was famed for knowing more about everything than anyone else in Greece. He knew about the stars and about which plants would cure diseases. He was a great archer and he could play the lyre and sing songs and tell stories better than any human in all the land. And that's why many kings sent their sons to him to be educated. So little Jason went to the centaur's cave on the mountaintop, and he spent his youth there learning to hunt and fish and use a sword and a spear. What was better still, to be truthful and kind. But at last Jason grew to be a man, and then Chiron told him that his father Æson was not just a friendless pauper, but had once been a king. He explained to Jason how Æson's throne had been taken away from him, and he told the boy that his duty now lay in reclaiming the kingdom, and that was rightfully his father's own. When the time for parting came, Chiron went with Jason to the foot of the mountain, and he said to him, "Forget not the lessons I have told you. Always speak and act the truth, and be kind to all who need your help." So Jason started on his journey. When he had gone some distance, he came to a stream that had been flooded by the spring rains. On the bank stood an old woman looking for some way to cross it. Mindful of what the centaur said, Jason spoke to her and offered to carry her across the swollen stream. The old woman gladly accepted the offer, and Jason lifted her upon his shoulders and entered the rushing river. The water dashed against him with great force, and he struggled with all his might, and he was out of breath when he landed his companion safely on the other shore. But you can imagine Jason's surprise to not see an old woman he had carried across, but the stately form of the goddess Juno, queen of all the immortals, standing before him. "Young man," she said, "you have a good and brave heart, and you shall not regret your kindness to an old woman." And in the next instant, she vanished. When Jason recovered from his surprise and started to go on his way, he saw to his dismay that one of his sandals had been lost in the rushing river, so he had to walk the rest of his way with only one shoe. He came at last to the palace of his father's brother, whose name was Peleus, and he was taken straight away to see the king. The king's face turned pale with fear at the sight of Jason, for an oracle had been foretold that his kingdom would be taken away from him by a youth wearing only one sandal. And one of Jason's feet, as you know, was bare because he had lost it in the stream, right? But the crafty king pretended to be very glad indeed to see his nephew. He bade him sit down and rest himself, and he placed food and drink before him. While they were eating, the king told many stories of brave men who lived long ago. "Ah, those were the days," he sighed, "but such heroes do not live in our times anymore." "You are wrong," Jason cried. "There are many heroes waiting only for the chance to do great deeds." At this, the king laughed out loud. "You are a foolish lad," the king chided. "But it is time that I find out who you are. Why have you come to this kingdom?" "I am Jason, son of the rightful King Æson," he replied, "and I have come to take back my father's kingdom." Then Peleus grew pale again, but he was cunning, and he leaped up and embraced the lad and made much finding after him, made much cunning, and made much of finding him after all these years. And he said it was good for the kingdom to have a new ruler, for he himself was old and was tired of the responsibilities of ruling a kingdom. "But that can never be," the king lamented, pretending to be sorrowful at the thought, "for there is such a curse on this kingdom that it shall not be ruled by another until the golden fleece is brought here from the land at the end of the world." And then he told the story of Phrixus and Helle and the golden fleece hanging in the woods, guarded by the dragon who never sleeps. When he had finished, Jason sprang to his feet and cried, "I will prove to you, O king, that the race of heroes is not dead. I will bring to you this golden fleece, or die in the attempt." This, of course, was exactly what the king wanted to hear, for he knew that there was very little chance that Jason would ever return from such a journey. But of course, he did not show how pleased he was. Jason then proceeded to construct a good, strong ship, which he called the Argo. And he sent out messengers all over Greece to his friends who had been schooled with him in the Centaur's cave. He warned them that there would be fighting and danger and even a dragon to kill. But they all came, for they were eager to help Jason regain his kingdom. They gathered by the shore and helped in fitting out the Argo for the voyage, and they called themselves the Argonauts. You've probably heard of them, right? Now it happened that the great goddess Juno had sent to Jason a gift to show that she had not forgotten her promise to help him. It was a wondrous piece of sacred oak carved into the figurehead and fitted into the prow of the Argo. And truly wondrous it was indeed, for the greatest wonder of it of all was the fact that this piece of wood could actually speak. Many a time during the long voyage, when Jason was in great danger and did not know what to do, he consulted that figurehead, and he always received good advice. But that is getting ahead of the story, and we will talk about that next week. When the Argo was finished and all the provisions had been put aboard, the Argonauts waited for the tide and at last set sail. High atop his mountain home, old Chiron saw the swift ship depart with his best and brightest boys on board, and he waved his mighty arms and prayed that their courage and their wisdom would bring them home safely again. And there you can see him standing and hoping that they would be okay. And there is that figurehead that talks to them and gives Jason good advice on where to go and how to stay out of danger. And I wanted to point out to you that the word Argonaut, remember it's Jason and the Argonauts, the Argonaut means sailor of the Argo. And you know, it's interesting because the syllable coming from the Greek, we have some of those root words still in our language today. Nautilus, which means sailor, and astronaut and cosmonaut. Astronaut means star sailor, and cosmonaut means sailor of the cosmos. And they come from that word nautical, which means having to do with the sea. And it all comes from this root word, which is the not part of, like we heard in Argonaut. So it's interesting how these words that start way back when have these Greek roots to them, and we still put them in words today. So that is the story. And when we put that back in our idea of a quest, what we saw today with Jason is he got this call from the king, didn't he? He got this challenge from the king that you can't get that fleece back. And if you can get that fleece back, then you can have, then I will think about giving you the kingdom, right? It was a challenge, it was a call. And so how did Jason respond? Well, he said, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. And then what did he say? He said, well, you know what? I'm going to prepare for that. And I will prepare by getting this ship together. And I'm going to get my band of allies together, the Argonauts, and we're going to get ready and head out. So he is getting ready to head out on this quest to go get that golden fleece, and then to show that he truly is, there still truly are heroes, and he is worthy of getting this kingdom back in order. So next week will be the conclusion of Jason and the golden fleece. Now, the last couple weeks, we have been talking a lot about kings and kingdoms, and whether they're good kings or bad kings or worthy of being a king in a kingdom. So I thought what would be fun this week, if you want to do a project, is I thought origami might be kind of a fun thing to do. And I have a project that if you want to make a crown out of origami, it's a very little one, granted, but it's a very cute crown out of origami. And it's probably about the size that you could put on a doll or on Legos, if you want to build some Legos and create it to put on a kingdom in your Legos, that would probably work too. And so I hope you have fun with that. You can do it just out of regular, you don't have to have origami paper. You can do it just with computer paper, as long as you make it into a square first. So give that a try. And if you do, take a picture of it, and we'd love to see it and share it with me. You can also, if you don't want to do that, just post a comment and tell me what you thought of the story, and I'd love to hear that too. Hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.